Why Tibet, people have asked me. Well, for centuries Tibet existed as a culturally rich and independently governed nation. A place of great peace and natural wonder, it gave a refuge and religious freedom to people whose language, laws, institutions and customs were created with one thing in mind: the creation of a society totally imbued with and inspired by love, kindness and human compassion. But this all changed in 1949 when Chinese troops invaded. Since 1949, countless atrocities have occurred, and because Tibet was shut down to the outside world for 40 years, it was really hard to know accurately, but what is known to have occurred is mass starvation, the destruction of culture and history. 99% of all monasteries were destroyed, prison camps were formed for the young and strong Tibetans, and Tibetans suffered horrific forms of torture. The Dalai Lama was made #1 enemy, and any Tibetan caught with any photos or other forms of worship of the Dalai Lama were tortured. It's estimated since 1949 that over 2 million Tibetans have been murdered, and in one single day in 1959, 15,000 Tibetans who stood up and protested against China taking over their country were butchered in the streets of Lhasa. Tibetans in 2009 are still brutally tortured, they have no real liberty, and are slowly being bred out of existence. It is horrendous that China continues on its march of abuse unabated. We are talking about human rights, the freedom, like you and I, to try and achieve some kind of relative happiness in our lives. Everyone deserves this, and is why I'm trying to help stop the oppression of the Tibetan people. And the best way I thought was to make people aware and help them understand. I thought that a book would be the best way to franchise this message. I don't believe that violence and hatred is a natural phenomenon, but a learned one. I believe it is unnatural because the goal for most people that I've experienced in my life so far is to find and achieve some kind of relative happiness. I don't believe that we are here to participate in violent acts or to create fear and sadness for others. Many would disagree though, because every day and throughout history this has occurred, but I don't believe this should be a justification. Ignorance creates fear, but if you develop an understanding of your supposed enemy, you develop a compassion, therefore an empathy. And how can one person hurt another if they can feel their pain? I was overwhelmed by the joyful and calming influence of the Tibetan people. I felt very much at home sitting in a monastery with gas butter lamps burning and the monks softly talking to themselves. I felt very much at home. They were very calming. Despite years of suffering and systematic cultural cleansing they have experienced, their beauty continued to shine through. Their strength and courage to survive, along with their happiness and compassion, was inspiring and humbling. And I, and all of us, being privileged living in a country like Australia, I felt a duty to try and address the plight of the Tibetan people. So I created this book. Things don't look terribly hopeful for Tibet. It's militarised. They're not only sighting nuclear weapons there, they're making weapons there. They have military bases there. They're storing nuclear waste there. There's the environmental devastation and all of that going on. And there are so many reasons why the future is not hopeful for having autonomy today. And here's where I get back to my theme and this book. Because the future for Tibet isn't in the hands of the powerful for all of the great work that the Dalai Lama himself does and other people do, and the occasional leader does. The future for Tibet lies in the hearts and minds of ordinary people. Because it's in the strength of bonds, and this is what this book does. It has a clear vision for where we want to see the whole struggle. And it provides a snapshot of the humanity, the humour, and the courage of the Tibetan people. And in Shane's story, Shane exemplifies the fact that it's in the bonds between ordinary people. And His Holiness said that we have to, in these times of great stress, the powerful and the weak must do what they can. But it's in the bonds between people that lies the future of not only just Tibet, but everywhere where people look for the autonomous practice of their culture, for independence, for those human rights, and the ordinary life that people want without the oppression. So I encourage you to buy this little treasure and get this little treasure out there.